Welcome, Doctor. On behalf of our request from Bengaluru Navanirmana Party, having accepted to just address the topic on mental health, welcome to you again.
Thank you.
Just wanted to talk about Dr. Arvind. He is a PhD holder and works as a psychiatric social work in the Department of Psychiatric Social Work in NIMHANS currently. And he has MPhil and MA in social work into his degrees. Currently working as associate professor of psychiatric social work in Department of Psychiatry Social Work in NIMHANS. He also has worked in Manipal Kasturba Medical College. His special areas of interest are community mental health. How does it functioning in mental health care, volunteers in mental health care, development of mental health education aids, psychological care during disaster management, social work and mental health, its practice, training and research, etc. He has worked on a number of projects from NIMHANS itself. It could be with various governments. I don't know how many to read, but I would read one or two of them. With government of Chhattisgarh, collaborative project on capacity building for nodal officers of Chhattisgarh. EMR and MOH GOI collaborative project of training of trainers workshop on psychosocial care in disaster management for health personnel. World Vision India collaborative project on psychosocial care of building resilience in the community, and so on and so forth. That he has ample work that he has done through NIMHANS on various fronts. And he has conducted more than 300 workshops on various this one. I was one of the attendees in the disaster management and rehabilitation care that he had taken for Kodagu part of disaster that had happened, the natural disaster. So workshops range from psychosocial care for survivors of natural disaster and communal violence, stress management for community level workers in disaster, mental health counseling, psychosocial care for children in disaster, stress management for states of government of Karnataka staff, enriching the family life, and so on and so forth. There's so much to read. And importantly, suicide prevention program, managing stress in sports, creating awareness in community on mental health related issues, stress management for IT professionals, uh, again stress management for staff of corporates, psychosocial interventions for persons with mental illness, advanced training program in mental health for NGO workers. And he has been a resource person, faculty for government and NGO agencies, and the list goes on. So I wouldn't even read because
Please.
I told the way the whole profile is, it takes 30 minutes only for me to read. Before I would hand over to Dr. Arvind, he has many publications onto his feather in the cap. International journals of about 16, 11 national journals. He has written a book. I think he will give more details about it. A research report 1, and manuals of 7, workbook 7, and last but not least, he has written 10 newsletters as well. So we are, with so much of knowledge that he has, I think we are blessed to have him here. Approached him just 2 days ago and he happily agreed and just gave the connect in which I had met him and had his number. He was more than happy to address. And I think we are all happy to have you, Dr. Arvind, here. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, madam, for that generous introduction about me. I am really very happy to be part of this program. And I'm always happy for reasons of my background of community mental health. I am always happy to, interact with persons who are in direct touch with the community, because we always believe that, it's a kind of integrated approach that will help the mental health or mental health services to be reached to so many people in the community. So in that background, I had readily agreed, and in fact, it is a good opportunity for me as a professional to address a group of the volunteers. And I'm sure that the topic has been circulated to you, but the context in which I'm going to talk for the next 30 to 40 minutes is all about not you as just a volunteer as such, And of course, sometimes the content, what we are going to discuss, I'm going to take it this way, in the sense I'm going to consider you as a volunteer, who's helping others, as well as an individual who is also part of the impact of COVID-19. As we all know, like not even a single person is left out of the impact, whether directly or indirectly. In that context, we are going to have discussions. You can always write your questions immediately, even during the presentations. Maybe madam can just have a look at it, and you can stop me anywhere to just answer those questions. And later also we can have a question and answer sessions as such. So with this, let me just share my presentation. Is my presentation visible, madam?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Yeah. So I would say this mental health issues in this particular COVID-19 pandemic is as prevalent as the symptoms of COVID-19 itself. At least COVID-19 symptoms affects people who are infected with COVID-19, whereas this mental health issues are affecting all the persons, whether irrespective of whether they have infected with COVID-19 or not. This mental health issues are there everywhere, starting from child to elderly person. It is there everywhere, no matter what is their socioeconomic status. It is there everywhere. So in this context, it is very important to address these issues also, along with the COVID-19 impact itself. And let me just start with not in terms of problems, but let me start just to understand what exactly is meant by well-being and mental health, because we are talking more in terms of mental health issues, psychological problems, stress. But while we are talking about all these things, the question would be, okay, all these things are there, where you want me to reach, or what is that I need to keep up. What is that from mental health point of view is this well-being and mental health. When I say by well-being, it is just not well-being is a total, it comprises of not just emotional, but it also comprises of physical as well as social components. It's an overall experience of health. When I say health, it's just not mental health, physical health, psychological health, that is mental health, as well as the social health as such. And then the feeling of happiness and prosperity. Overall, this is called as well-being, in which the emotional well-being plays a very, very important role. And in that emotional well-being, when we define, or when we see what exactly are the components of this emotional well-being or mental health, is it consists of four areas. One is how much a person is realizing their own abilities. When I say person, need not be a person who's working in corporate sector. It can be a child. It can be even anybody, a homemaker. It can be a person who's doing some business, or who's doing a small time business. The person who realizes their own abilities, and a person who cope positively with the normal stresses, what they face in their day-to-day life. Again, when I say person, it is not specific to one particular group. It can be anybody. And then the one who can work productively, also fruitfully. It's just not like a machine. Like machine keeps producing things, but we are not really sure whether it is really making it feel fruitful. Whereas we as human beings also need to be productive. When I say productive, it is just not at the work front, at the family, with friends, at the social level. And then finally, the important thing is how much we are able to make contributions to the community. For example, you as volunteers, yes, the contributions what you make also improves the mental health. More you know your abilities, the more you're able to positively cope with your stresses, and more you're productive, and more you're contributing to the community, better would be our mental health. So mental health, or the well-being, is not just absence of stress reactions or absence of mental disorders. There are so many people who are not having any mental disorder, but at the same time, who will also not be having mental health. Please try to understand that, because majority of us are not even a single person is spared from any stresses. One or the other stresses will be there, and that too in a COVID situation, COVID-19 pandemic situation. Definitely there will be more stresses, but even in that situation, how is that we are going to keep up our mental health? If we are able to follow this, definitely our mental health can be promoted, and so that also will prevent us from getting into or giving in for a lot of stress reactions. Stressor is COVID-19. Stress reactions tends to happen because of the stressor, but how we manage decides on whether we fall on the mental health side or we fall on the distress side. So it is all left to us, which is very much under our control. So this is something which we need to always keep in mind. Where I am up to, I am up to getting or promoting my mental health or well-being. That is what need to be the focus as an individual, for our family, also for the people with whom we are working, in addition to other services what you are providing as part of the volunteer. Now, see, for example, some of us as volunteers also would have worked in, as Madam was saying, in Kodagu floods, or even in what has happened in Chennai, or in tsunami, in other earthquakes. People from here send some materials to Kashmir, we have seen. But this particular COVID-19 is something different from other disaster, whether it is natural or human made. You can see majority of the population will witness personally this disaster in a specific location, whereas COVID-19 is global, and that's why this epidemic is called as pandemic. And whereas other disaster is a one-time event, it keeps happening every day, and no one is very sure who's going to get it next. And possibilities of physical impact for majority of time and majority of people, whereas here physical impact is less, in the sense the number of people who die, the percentage is very much relatively less, but still the psychological impact for even for those who are COVID, those who do not have the illness also is more, and the social issues pertaining to specific population. Whereas here social issues are different from other disaster, and in fact social issues are there for everybody, from lower socioeconomic status to higher socioeconomic status. Everyone have one or the other social issues. And then if you see stigma, it is post disaster, the stigma is less, people will be more sympathetic, people will tend to go. Whereas here, during the illness period, post recovery, and also it includes the first responders, the stigma. So that also restricts the kind of interventions what we give, and it also increases the mental health issues or the stresses among the affected population. And then if you see the kind of help which we can provide, person to person, it is more. Group interventions can be done, it is very much possible. Whereas here, the restrictions are there, even even if our heart says, yes, I need to work, I cannot go out for various reasons. That itself will, as volunteers, will put us under a lot of guilt trip. But these are all common things in this kind of pandemic situation, which we need to first of all accept. Unless we accept it, we will not be able to work through that. So in this context, we are going to see how we can improve our mental health, how we can promote our mental health, and how we can prevent ourselves from getting into some sort of mental distress, not only for us, also for the people with whom we are working. Now, in what context we are going to talk about the mental health issues? Yes, though the mental health issues are the outcome, the sources are very much social and medical in nature. We need to really understand those aspects. The one in the red fonts are the one which is there in the current wave. The other things are in the which are in the blue fonts are continuing to be there from the last wave. Kind of lack of awareness, the quarantine itself, what we call it a social vaccine, the quarantine, self-isolation, now currently lack of medical facilities for treatment of COVID patient itself. In the sense, the previous wave, it was only lack of medicines and treatment facilities For other chronic illnesses like dialysis, chemotherapy, you could see lack of facilities. Whereas now, even for the COVID-19 itself, the treatment is becoming difficult. And then the vulnerable groups, children, women, elderly, and persons with disability, and also persons with who are third gender persons. All these persons are also the vulnerable among vulnerable population. And the most importantly, this infodemic. It is as dangerous as the pandemic as such. All these social issues are the one which is putting us into the psychological issue. If you see here, the problems or the mental health issues, which is because of COVID-19 symptoms itself, is much, much lesser. Whereas comparatively, all the other issues, for example, quarantine means it is not for people who are positive. Quarantine is, is for the persons who were with, in a close contact, who did not have any, but still for on a precautionary basis, we will put them. So even there, see, there are no symptoms, but the quarantine process itself will put them under some sort of psychological problem. What are those psychological problems which we need to understand in the context of COVID-19 pandemic? Lot of fear, fear of infection. This can be seen in our own behavior. We don't go out of the house. Even if we go out of the house, if someone sneezes up, some 10, 15 meters that side, like we get that palpitation, whether this will infect me. And in 2 minutes time, we will feel some amount of, change in our heartbeat. Then that will make us to think that whether is it that I'm getting infected. These are all some sort of illogical fears which happens, which is quite normal in these kind of situations. Fear of infection, fear of falling ill, dying, fear of loved ones getting into this kind of. And that's how sometimes if I have my elderly father, if he, with all precautions, if he wants to go out for a walk near house, we will prevent them. But that prevention, preventing them from going out in a very, very conducive environment, that itself will make them to feel very bad and depressed. So it is all interlinked. And sometimes we avoid approaching health facilities and feel powerless. Though we have money, though we have other things, but still I am not able to save my family member. Though I am a volunteer, I am not able to provide this. This amount of powerlessness is there in any population whom we are working with, whom as a volunteer, as well as an individual in a family where I am not able to, support the persons, the near and dear ones. In fact, for example, neighborhood, one of the child or one the family member getting infected, we are feeling powerless not to provide any sort of physical support. And then feeling helpless and being in quarantine, being self-isolated, more than symptoms, being alone itself, loneliness gives us a lot of boredom, and then sometimes hopelessness. And that's why you can see in some instances, even in the hospitals, because of this hopelessness, there are people with COVID-19, they commit suicide. Because it's just not about the symptom, because of that uncertainty. What is tomorrow? How am I going to live? Because they would have lost their livelihood, nothing, everything they would have spent on this fear, and then feeling hopeless. And for some population who had already had some trauma in terms of accidents or in terms of any other disaster, or even, for example, people who are prone for flood and cyclones, they would have already experienced these sort of disasters. And they would be reliving those experiences. That gives them more reactions related to psychological impact. So these are some of the immediate psychological impact as we are going through this COVID-19 pandemic situations. We can see either in the first wave or in the second wave. And if these things are not addressed, then it might also lead to a lot of long-term psychological impact, which we had already seen between wave 1 and wave 2, where there are a lot of rushes. The moment when grocery shops were open, there was a lot of rush because of that uncertainty, because of lack of work or lack of physical activity, a lot of weight gains. Most of us would have felt lazy to get back to a routine, keeping up the schedule. The social networks would have got deteriorated. We would have stopped going to our relatives' place. We would have got stopped going to our native. That really gets deteriorated. Stigma continues to happen, and then lot of change or the expression of these emotions in terms of anger and aggression against the family members, yes, the children, spouses, as well as government and frontline workers. We would have seen these incidences, we would have heard these incidences through newspapers and news channels. And this, we need to understand, this is a kind of expression of these emotional reactions because of these long-standing event itself. One has to understand from that point of view. At family level, yes, aggression against children, there are a lot of domestic violence being reported, intimate partner violence. Women keep quiet because if they say that, they would feel that the name, their family name would go off. So, but these are all the things which are really happening, which again is a kind of psychological impact for that particular group of people. And then we now generally tend to mistrust any information which comes from any source, even if it is a reliable source. That is because of that infodemic which was flowing so much, and we were filled with so many information, we were not able to. So this is a kind of cognitive impact what we will have. And of course, with the population who are already having mental health problems, we would not be having proper services available. So that also would lead to the negative outcomes. In fact, it will deteriorate the condition which already we would be seeing in our own families or in the neighborhood. These are all the long-term psychological impact. And if these short-term things are not addressed adequately, these are the long-term impact which will crop up in the community even after the COVID-19 subsides. So one has to look into these aspects either at the family level or at the community level as volunteers, and we need to simultaneously start working on all these issues. And how are we going to do it? We are going to see that, but this is what we need to understand. So in this situation, in this kind of psychological impact, which is quite normal, how do one understand that that he or she is under stress, or how do one can understand that the other person is in stress or not? Because one person's stress situation need not be the same for other, though the situation is same. For example, me and then the other person who are into the same situation of getting affected by COVID-19, we need not, both of us need not feel the same amount of stress. So if that is the case, so how do I know either me or my family member or someone else is under stress? That can be seen only through these reactions. Some of these reactions, which I have already told you here, it can be further divided into these kind of things. So stress reactions need not be always emotional in nature. Stress reactions can be behavioral in nature. Increased intake of substance, increase sleep or decrease sleep, feeling very restless, problems in eating, not able to eat or eating more, speech, not able to comprehend things when we are talking. We tend to eat, talk, walk faster. We don't take care of ourselves. Our productivity might come down, or you can see that in your family, or you can see that in someone else's, and we would not be able to manage the time. This is in terms of behavior, you know and sensationally we can, most of the time when most of people of us are stressful, most of the time we would experience it through increased heartbeat, dryness of mouth. Simple example, leave COVID-19 situation. Otherwise, also in other stress situations, like if you're asked to talk in front of a large crowd without preparation, these are the things which will come up first. Why these reactions? For example, you as a volunteer, how do you know that you are stressful? Like you will be pushed to think that I must do well in this difficult situation. Okay, giving your contribution to the society is, yes, it will improve your mental health. But if you're pushed to a limit, like no, whatever comes, I need to do well, that itself is a kind of cognition which is coming up because of stress. We need to understand. If we don't understand, we will continue to have this reaction. We will continue in that situation, and only then these stress reactions will become a distress for us. So why we need to know about these reactions, why we need to know about these reactions specific to COVID-19 is that the first step in managing these difficult situations is that accepting, yes, I have these reactions. Yes, I also, yes, that person is having stress reaction. Accept these reactions, identify these reactions. Because once when we don't accept and identify or recognize, unfortunately, we will continue to do the same thing and the situation also will worsen. For example, here being interpersonally, we continue to be aggressive and angry towards our spouse. If I don't understand, yes, I am aggressive. This could be because of my stress. This could be a stress reaction for me, and see what is the reason for the stress reaction. Reason for the stress reaction could be any of these things, what we have spoken about. Please try to understand, because the first step in managing stress is that recognizing the stress reaction. Because as I told you, stress situations are different for different people. So what is common? These stress react. Of course, not all these reactions are going to happen, but if we are aware of these reactions, we can understand, yes, I am into it. So basically, let me recognize that and then accept that. I'm not something who is free of all these things. Even as a mental health professional, we used to get these things. But we need to recognize it. And then first step in management is stress management is, yes, recognize, understand, accept. The second step is work on those reactions first. As you work, for example, if you have dry mouth, you need to drink some water. You cannot continue to shout at people with the dry mouth without even recognizing this dry mouth is because it's a stress reaction. And that's where things worsen. And this is quite common for any situation, not necessarily in this kind of situation. But these are all the reactions which tends to come more in this, pandemic situation as such. Feeling anxious. The moment when I think about what will happen if I get it, you can see increased heartbeat. You don't feel like eating. There will be a kind of increase in blood pressure. So these are a combination of things, which is I'm just given in a cluster so that it is easy for us to understand. So the first point is, yes, recognize, accept, and then the second point is you start working on the managing the reaction. Once when you manage these reactions, then it is easy for us to manage the situation better. Now, managing the reactions, whatever said and done, if we are not aware of these things, obviously the anxiety level will be more. Because I am talking in the context of COVID-19. In the context of COVID-19, managing anxiety will be definitely including these behavioral aspects. Behavioral aspects meaning to say, try to understand the current status of COVID-19, just not the incident rate, recovery and death rates. Now, at least compared to last month, now I am very sure that the recovery rates are better and the incidence rate are also not so much compared to last month. So that gives me a kind of relaxation. And then basic knowledge about the causes, symptoms, incubation period, and means of spread. If I'm not even aware of these means of spread, I used to suspect each and every action of others. And then the precautions. You can't say, I will not follow this precaution, and at the same time, I should be away from anxiety. It's not possible. The more we are following this, the lesser we would be subjected to anxious reactions. When I say anxious reactions, the reactions, what I showed you in the previous slide. Sometimes, your using of mask is not only helpful for reducing your anxiety, it is also helpful to reduce others' anxiety. Following this respiratory hygiene, whenever you want to sneeze, when the absence of mask in the public place, if you follow respiratory hygiene, in fact, that is closing your mouth this way. In fact, it reduces the anxiety symptoms of others. Please try to understand. By doing this, it's just not only you're reducing your own stresses or your own anxiety, you're also helping someone else to reduce their anxiety and stress. It happens. You can see people don't come out just for these reasons. And then the last one is the myths and facts. Lot of information what it comes to us through WhatsApp messages not really are facts, but unfortunately, since it comes in a mass number, large number, we tend to follow it and we miss out on actual important right things what we are supposed to do. These precautions, we also call it as social vaccine. There are also a lot of myths about the vaccinations as such. All these things, what is the actual fact is given in the WHO website. Please, instead of seeing all the local newses, you can keep seeing those WHO websites, which also gives a lot of right information. That will help you to be in the right state of mind. And the other thing, what you need to avoid to reduce your anxiety and stress is this infodemic. Just don't keep forwarding the message whatever you get, or just don't keep believing the message or whatever you get it. The person who has sent this may be you. It has come to you like one among the 1,000 persons, but the message need not be always right. Look whether the what is the source. Just don't read the headlines. Identify who's the author. Are they reliable? Check the date. We can see now last year's last year's messages are coming now as if it is for this current year. Examining the evidence, supporting evidence. Check your biases. Sometimes we will be for certain information, even though if it is not right, we will be like believing, sir, if those things come, then we will tend to believe it more. Don't be that way. And then try to look for the fact checkers. For example, day before yesterday, there was a news which said that one of the leading virologists, if I'm not wrong, yeah, it has come as if he has said that people who have taken vaccination are all going to die after 2 years. But that's not the message. That was the thing which was there in headlines. That headlines also was wrong. That was not the message. And through fact check, we found that because there were so many elderly people who would be very stressed because of that. So try to avoid these aspects as such. In addition to that, this approach is very, very important for oneself as well as when you're talking to someone. Because generally, whenever we are in stress, cognitively, as I told you, we tend to think in a very stereotyped manner, which is most of the time negative in nature. That's it. It's not going to happen. When is it going to happen? I don't think we are going to improve. These are all things which will automatically, because this is something related to the neurobiology. But how it can be, rewired by putting in positive thoughts and taking one day at a time or 1 week at a time, not thinking of when it will get over. To be safe, I need to be safe today. I need not worry about my safety after 6 months. We do not know what's going to happen. Always keeping some positive in the sense, like, what is the way out, we need to keep thinking. There can be a lot of alternatives. Looking for the help of someone else itself is one of the alternatives. But unfortunately, during stressful situation, we forget to seek out help. That's one of the alternative when we are talking about problem solving as such. Look for the merits and demerits of each of the alternative and start working on that. Because most of the time, this is what happens in a stressful situation. Our brain tends to give lots of negative messages. And who's going to change it? It's me who's going to change, because that negative message is also is mine. So I'm going to, for example, if I think that, as I was telling you early, if somebody sneezes from a distance, and even I am wearing mask, I would first thought would be, what if I get it? But you need to challenge those thoughts. You need to dismiss those thoughts with your actual facts, for which you need to be able to know all these stuff. And that's how it is very, very important. So this is one cognitive approach, what we can keep doing it for ourselves as well as helping others who are having such issues. And most important thing is the sleep and eating habits during this situation. Though we are talking about cognitive aspects, both body and mind are very much connected. When there is a problem in the mind, it will have an impact on the body. For example, when I'm stressed out, I don't eat properly or I overeat. And when there is a problem in the body, it also affects the mind. For example, if there is some sort of chronic illness, something like kidney related issues or cancer, obviously it affects my mind where I become distressed, which means both are really connected. So in this case, in order to manage our stress, which is mind related, we also need to take care of our body function, in which the sleep and having food on time. When I say sleep, 6 to 7 hours of good sleep, I would say why that good sleep is important. Some of you must be aware of this rapid eye movement stage and non-rapid eye movement stage in our sleep. Our sleep has four stages of this non-rapid eye movement stage and rapid eye movement stage. And this goes in cycle. In 7 to 8 hours, we will have 3 to 4 cycles of this rapid eye movement and non-rapid eye movement. It starts with non-rapid eye movement stage and it ends with rapid eye movement stage, each cycle, like that 4 cycles. And these are the cycles which helps us to rebuild our bones and rebuild our tissues, to give us growth. And unfortunately, during these stressful situations, we sometimes don't sleep, don't feel like sleeping. Make sure we have adequate sleep during this time. And also, when I say this V-shaped food habit, it's nothing great. It's like, morning time. This is that first part, morning time, afternoon, and then evening time. And unfortunately, because of no routine in these days, sometimes we tend to invert it and then have our food. Invert it, when I say morning we get up late, we don't eat. Afternoon, okay, something is there. The night I compensate it by ordering it from outside. In fact, that again creates a lot of problem. That again will have an impact on the sleep as such. The heavy food intake will also disturb sleep, even if you're not stressed. So that is one thing which we need to follow. If you follow this, whether you like it or not, those stress reactions can be managed effectively. And then, of course, the physical activity, I'll talk about it later. And then food intake at regular intervals. It's not like one day lunch I'll take it at 1, the other day lunch I'll take it at 4, even if you're volunteer. You know, on time, it's not necessarily a full-fledged thali or something like that. We need to have some food with us in terms of fruits or biscuits or whatever it is. Make sure you have food on time. You don't have to be so involved in the volunteer work where it makes you get frustrated after a point of time if you don't do all these things. And then take a dinner at least 1 to 2 hours before sleep. It gives you adequate time to get digested, and that itself gives a good sleep. And then the next important thing is, some of us might take this drinking alcohol as one of the coping mechanism to have good sleep or to be away from stress, but none of those things are true. Those are all myths. It will increase appetite, no. It will relieve from cold and cough, or it will help you to forget worries. It relieves body pain, it increases sexual enjoyment. None of these things are true. On contrary, alcohol itself is a depressant. So over a period of time, for the reason for what you started drinking, even if that reason subsides, you would not be able to get away from this. And this will become a point of worry for you as well as your family member, being a stressful situation. So kindly, at least, of course, drinking as an habit, I'm not going to discuss about that. But here, as I told you, one of the reaction is that increased use of substance, whether it is drinking or it is smoking. Please avoid that as a coping strategy, because that is not going to take you anywhere. That will only worsen the condition, and also that will make you dependent on these aspects. So this is not the way to cope with these stressful situations. And in general, some of the strategies for the well-being as well as managing stress, the physical activity, as I told you, the stress reactions, whatever the hormones involved in it, and the physical exercise, whatever increases, whatever the hormones are increases, are having connections. And definitely, as I told you, whether you like it or not, every day at least a minimum of 20 minutes of physical activity. In sense, at least in Bangalore, I think in that local areas they are allowing walking with all those precautions. I do that in the morning, so even police allow it. And only thing is, we need to be mindful when we are walking. We need to walk in a place where there are less people. So that is also possible. We cannot give that as an excuse. And then relaxation exercises. I heard from Madam that there were some sessions on breathing and meditation. This actually really helps because, as I told you, physical reaction includes this shallow breathing whenever you are under stress. So whenever I am under stress, I mindfully breathe in, breathe out. That when I do it in cycle, that itself reduces the stress reaction, so that it helps you to manage those situations in a better way. Keeping in touch with family members or the neighbors or the relatives, through the technology, whatever we have, whether it is Zoom or mobile phones, that helps us to distract from the thoughts what we have about COVID-19 or any things related to that. And then in order to avoid yourselves from getting into the situation of infodemic, reduce the time spent looking on TV or the information. Even if you are having some screen time, have it for some normal stuff, not really things related to COVID. Have something which helps you to keep yourselves light. And whenever you are feeling stress, all these things, no, these are all not things which has to be done by everybody. All these things, it depends on who is comfortable with what. These are the set of strategies which has been told by so many people that it is helping. And that's why we are bringing it, all these things here. It is left to you to try and test it and then work on it. Like whenever I am stressed, I go for a long walk. I do that cognitive exercise. I take my the paper and work on Sudoku. It only helps you to distract from those thoughts. That's what which is very important. And be aware of positive changes which is happening around you. You just as a volunteer think of, you must be worried sometimes what nothing is happening, but there are a lot of positive things would have happened. As I told you in that problem solving, those positive things would not strike you unless you consciously think about. Please think about it and have a keep writing about that. That will give you a lot of positive thoughts in you. And then getting the support through helplines. If it is not, you're not able to manage it, if you feel others are not able to manage it, suggest getting support from the helplines. I'm going to show about that helpline little later. This is with regard to individual and family. And there are also elderly persons in our family. There are persons whom we can come across who are persons with disability, other elderly, other vulnerable group, children, women. We need to equally focus on them. For example, for elderly, spending some quality time with them. Some, I'm not saying a more quantity of time is not important. Quality time in terms of asking them what they are saying, just listening to them is more than enough. And then gently pushing them to do that physical exercise. For example, I asked my mom, did you do that breathing every day? She is also asthmatic. She feels very happy about it. She also sometimes says that that gives us a kind of I feel happy about it, you asking. So simple things, you need not do big things. And then make sure their medical needs are met. Ensure they meet up with their contacts through whatever technology you have. Otherwise they would have sat together and discussed at the street corners or some temples. That may not be possible now. You make sure that is done through the technology what we have. They'll be more happy because they are the one who will have more reactions what was discussed before. Similarly, persons with disability. Yesterday, I saw some helpline being opened for persons who are physically challenged, for the persons who are blind, something like that. So that itself keeps them confident that yes, supports are reaching me. This I'm talking in the context of you as a volunteers. What special things I need to do, we need to keep thinking about it. And especially children, give a lot of time for them to talk, because in most of the families we prevent them from talking about what they feel. It's okay, don't talk about it. We try to do, no, it's not the right way. Let them talk about it, and then provide them the right information. We need not beat around the bush depending on their age. And sometimes even in the families where there is a kind of people who are very seriously ill, give right informations to these children about them. That's very important. Make sure their routine is regular, whether they have online class or no, but make sure they get up in the morning, take bath and sit in their class or do some activities, give opportunities. Unless we do that, as I told you, even after COVID-19 goes away, it's very difficult for us to bring them back to these routine. Make sure it has to be done, so that
We lost the connection.
Yeah.
You're on mute, doctor. Yeah.
am I audible, madam?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think there were some issues. You have all right.
Please continue.
Yeah. Hope I was heard till the issues related to children. Was it heard?
Yes, yes.
All right. So with regard to women, yes, as I was telling you, there are a lot of issues which is happening even at home. In COVID-19 situation, we think that home is a very safe place, but unfortunately, we don't know that even at home, that is where the aggression towards children is shown. It could be because of the alcohol related issues or because of the financial issues. It is being shown towards the vulnerable population. So we need to make the helplines available through these kind of networks, so that they will be in a position to call up, even maintaining their anonymity. So that is what we need to ensure, and this will ensure the reduction of those stress reactions among the vulnerable population as such. This is in general for those people, whether they have even if they do not have COVID-19. This is in general for those people in a COVID-19 situation as such, like in a given pandemic. So whereas when it comes to persons who are affected by COVID, or those who have recovered, or those who are recovering, there were, even in the last wave, it was very much evident. The people who were admitted, they had said that emotional support helped win the battle. It's just not those medical treatment. That emotional support is very, very important. Why here non-judgmental? Generally, we tend to say people, whenever we come across, when we call them up, we tend to tell them, why you have to go there? Why did you go to the see? That's not the thing what we need to discuss, because already that family member would be under guilt for not only getting that infection, but also to spread that infection to their family member. On that, when we just say this, that is what will make them to feel more sad than having the COVID-19 itself. Empathy, when I say empathy, only when you show empathy, this non-judgmental attitude will come down. And one of the behavior to show empathy is that it's just not calling them up and keep saying hundreds of things to be done by them. That is not empathy. Empathy is just to ask what they want, putting yourself, because generally we tend to say all these precautionary measures to avoid the worsening of symptoms. Something like, taking inhale hot water steam inhalation. But we will say this repeatedly, but we won't even ask, do they have it with them, those instruments? Simple thing, I'm just saying. Like some other people, I'm not saying just out of blue, because these are all the outcomes which has come as part of discussion with people who were COVID positive, those who recovered, and when we spoke about their needs, and these were all the things which were discussed. And then ventilation. Now government has also said the physical ventilation is important to avoid from virus to get circulated in a closed area. Similarly, for psychological ventilation also, there should be some mechanism where you allow them to talk, so that they can talk about it, they can bring that out. And whenever you also feel so stressed, make sure you ventilate it to some close person. Whether when you ventilate, make sure others listen, and when someone else ventilate, make sure you listen, rather than interrupting it frequently by asking some questions or telling them this is right, this is wrong, you should have done this, you shouldn't have done this. Not necessary. For them, just listening is important. That's what it was reported. And then reassurance is nothing but giving them some facts and information, right facts and right information, not false promises, which will reduce their fear and anxiety. The one who is looking for oxygen, make sure you also mobilize these support, and so not only the social support, also this physical support, and help them to understand it's going to reach. That is what is going to reduce their anxiety, rather than telling them just that don't worry, things will be all right. That is not going to help them. So make sure for this particular population who is positive and those who are recovered, these techniques are the one which is going to help, along with the physical support what you are providing. Sometimes we get overwhelmed where we don't allow them to talk, where there is no active listening at all, which will be more painful for them than the symptom itself. Please allow them. So if you feel overwhelmed, make sure that you get to talk to someone about these things. And in fact, you as volunteers who are working with COVID positive and recovered persons, you also need to have the space where you come, all of you come together, just to talk about what you feel and what you experience. We call it as debriefing sessions. You need to have it frequently, not to judge anybody, not to question anybody, just talk. If someone cries during the situation, allow them to cry. That is what will help you to get out of that situation psychologically. Okay. And this is to do with COVID positive persons. And this is the next level, who loses someone in the family member, in the family. For them, that grieving is very, very important. I told you, compared to normal situation, generally in disasters, the deaths and the death rituals are not able to be followed properly. Whereas comparing other disasters and COVID-19 disasters, things are quite different in terms of the rituals. For example, in a flood affected area, if there are some deaths, at least they are able to recover the bodies. If they are able to recover the bodies, it is possible for the family members to come together and do all the rituals. Whereas in COVID-19 situation, even that is not possible. That gives a lot of guilt. And this is the grief which we also need to address, along with the other psychological problems. Though this is for the lesser population, the impact is more. And please remember, there is no right way to grieve. Whichever gives them some sort of calmness, please let them do that. And how anybody will experience grief, I'm sure this has been circulated to you, as madam was talking about it. These are all some of us also would have lost our family member because of COVID, or you might come across family members who had lost their family member. Make sure you understand these reactions as grief. And generally there is a kind of the cycle which they go through. Initially, denial. What if he comes true, it comes alive, it will be nice. What if it is all false? And then the next stage would be anger. Anger towards oneself, anger towards others, anger towards government for not able to do. Then they get into depression. When I say depression, it's not really depression as a clinical diagnosis. Depressive feelings like sadness, not having that proper sleep. And then slowly they come in terms to the reality and start accepting. For this cycle to get over, some of the rituals were helping in normal situations. The rituals meaning to say, we will have that third day program, eighth day program, or we will call all the relatives. There we have enough time to cry. These are all the things which are missing. during this kind of situation. Make sure these things are done to some extent in a different manner. For example, here, don't isolate yourselves. If you are a grieving person, don't be always try to be alone. Be with people. That's what happens in actual situation, in a normal situation. You try to seek support, call up people and talk. Or if you find someone who has lost their family, call them and talk to them, and encourage them to eat and drink water adequately. As I told you, that will manage the physical reaction. Sometimes you may not even feel like getting up from sleep. It's okay. You just lie down. It's okay. And some people may not get sleep. Encourage them to just lie down in the bed for some time. That gives them physical rest as such. And then the alternate ways of mourning, sharing their pictures and remembering in the groups. Find some daily rituals, and write thoughts about them, which is the only possible thing in this kind of difficult situation. In some situations, I have seen, even in this current pandemic, some of the family member, they have taken away all the photos away from the children, because they thought that it will bring back the memories of the deceased person, which is not the right thing. They need to keep looking, and that's why even in normal situation we hang photos and just pray to them, because that's what will make us to accept that this person is no more. We need to move on. Try to bring in such kind of rituals even in this kind of restricted times. These things can be practiced for yourselves or ourselves if we have lost our family members, or to suggest people with whom you are volunteering. That will really help. And this kind of mental health component, if you are able to integrate it in your services, whatever you do, it is something like a pinch of salt what you add to the food what you serve, which will definitely serve the purpose. And these are all some of the things which you can do, like acknowledge them, like, I'm very sorry to hear about, even if you call over the phone about the loss. It's very understandable that you will feel sad, you will feel angry. Reach out. What would help you at this moment? Ask them. Try to provide physical as well as emotional support. And even in terms of giving them food and other aspects, develop support groups. If at all, if you have the little number of people who are grieving, with their permission, ask them to come together, let them discuss. This is an alternate way of grieving, which will help them to accept the death of the person. So these are all some of the things which you can do it at the third level. And this is the helpline what we really have even now, which has started from the previous wave as such. If at all, if the reactions are overwhelming, you can always suggest them to call up this number, where we will be able to provide higher level care. There are also other resources by other professional groups. For example, we run Association of Psychiatric Social Work Professionals. Indian Psychiatric Society is having online support program. We can always reach out to them. So this way, if we are able to provide the services and support to others, as well as if we are able to integrate this sort of mental health strategies in ourselves, our family, as well as for the people with whom we are working, definitely we will be able to bring or promote or withhold the well-being what we have in us, and then promote the mental health of ourselves, our family, as well as the individual or the individuals with whom we are working. With this, I'll stop. Probably we can have some discussions on this.
Yeah. Thank you, doctor. It was an awesome, I think everybody said,
You-
even when you went offline, it was saying, nice
Okay,
topic. I
okay.
said we are missing the physical activities that in person that you help us
Exactly.
do as a group, right? That's something I
Yes,
told.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I think the team participants are free to ask questions.
Yeah.
One is I myself, having gone through COVID, I feel post-COVID, we hear that there are a lot of different things that still stay for a couple of this one. I have lack
Mm,
of sleep.
mm, mm,
Is
mm.
that also part of COVID? And what is your advice?
See, this lack of sleep could be one of the psychological reaction. in terms of thinking about the things what has happened, or even that fear what we have. To induce good sleep, we suggest some of the sleep hygiene practice in terms of physical activity, as well as avoiding coffee, that is stimulants, coffee or tea in the night. Avoid heavy food in the night, and at the same time doing the simple relaxation exercise before going to bed. When I say simple relaxation exercise, it could be just deep breathing exercise, or flexing each part of our muscles and relaxing it. In that way, each part of the muscle, that also induces good sleep. These are the first step what you can try, madam. Things still, if it is not working, then we can similarly, not only for you, anybody who is listening can always get back to us. We can see the next level of the possibilities.
Thank you, doctor. And since I
Yeah.
mentioned that if it was an in-person meeting, you would organize some sessions. I believe
Yeah.
in another one of the sessions, there are ways we can actually do breakout rooms and do some activities,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
Whenever next possible time, if you indicate, we will organize these things, get people together, and we can take it forward.
Sure.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
think now participants, if they have any questions, please unmute yourself and feel free.
Thanks, Doctor. My name is Sudarshan. Actually, thanks for insights and all. So, and also you
Thank
mentioned a lot about I think how to handle situation across the various groups like women and aged people and children actually. So one
Yeah.
question on children, because children has been I think they're doing only online classes. They're not
Yes.
having any social network. They're not mingling with children
Mm-hmm.
actually. So
Mm-hmm.
because I think this is one of the area I think we are yet to I think explore I think what we need to do I think because I think we will not be able to see anything in the short run, but I think the long
Yes.
run I think we may be able to see some challenges I think around this. So how you
Yeah.
I think advise parents to cope up and then think take some action now I think so that we can avoid any challenges in future.
Very true. See, this is the very genuine sort of concern among all the parents who are having children, at least from the age group of 7 to 17, in the sense adolescents also. Like as it was discussed, keeping them engaged at home. Keeping them engaged at home in what? Like as I told you, of course, when the classes starts, yes, attending the classes would be one important aspect in the schedule. And along with that, to avoid that screen time, how I am also involved along with my child, how much time I am spending with the child, or what is that new thing that child is learning in this situation. For example, in some of the homes, parents have said that I've taught them some cooking, and now these children are interested in making coffee or in making some food, of course, under supervision. And these cannot be a kind of ready-made solution for all. But these are all some of the, as I told you, trial and error things. And don't think the same thing will be working for a long time also. As parents, we also need to have a list of alternatives. If this is not working, what next? And that is, in fact, in cleaning the houses, cleaning the house, doing household chores, including cooking and helping in other activities in the family. All those things has been added now as one of the alternative to keep these children engaged without use of screen time, because it is easy for the parents to make children to be just stuck to this any sort of screen, whether it is laptop or mobile. But as you rightly said, it will have a negative impact on the later stages. And in some of the instances, even parents have suggested the school, because school also, when they take online classes, it is a continuous class. Whereas now it has been suggested that in between they will have a break. And also, even during the online classes, if it is 45 minutes, in between they will have some physical activity, not only with physical education teachers, any sorts of subjects being taken. So some activities on these nature will definitely help the children. And more importantly, in all amidst all these things, whenever children are talking about these impacts, and it depends on the kind of impact what they had in their family. So allow them to talk about it. That is very, very important. And then make them to understand, like, what would you do as soon as the classes, schools open. So that helps them to think of something positive. Only when they say that, even if they say that, if we don't know when it is going to happen, but that's okay. But when it is going to happen, how is that you're going to be prepared? So that again helps us to put them into that problem solving approach. These are some of the innovative things which has to be done by the parents. And without parents' time, quality time with children, things are not going to be okay. That is one important thing. Yeah.
Thanks,
On the
doctor.
on the contrary, doctor, you have seen now all IT, etc. They are stretching overtime. So
Yes,
in this,
yes,
how
yes.
do you expect parents to spend even quality time of 5-10 minutes? All is okay, but how do
Yeah.
you? I mean, how does one expect to spend more? It is the same case with me also,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
That's
what
the
would be the
priority what we give. That's the priority what we give.
okay?
So if that's what exactly I told you, even for if I don't want to wear the mask, and at the same time I should be away from anxiety, it is not possible. Similarly here, and that's what sometimes it is at the macro level also. As I gave an example of the school, some of the schools have come forward to make these changes. At the company level also, there should be some changes which has to be done as part of policy, so that, and of course that will definitely come. These impacts will definitely make them to have that policy level changes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hello, doctor. This is Dhananjaya here.
Hello, sir. Yeah.
I have one question. So thanks a lot for the wonderful session.
Thank you.
We used to run a COVID war center, COVID,
Mhm.
with the patients to get, connected right set of people to get oxygen and stuff like that.
Okay.
And also
Okay.
requests used to come like, can you get the bed, from one hospital to another hospital and such like that. So we
Yes.
used
Yes. Yes.
to know what's the reason. And one of the important aspect a few patients brought about is that, whenever they are in a ICU room or in a ventilator, so they are getting a dreams or hallucination of, somebody is trying to, pull them up, or somebody is trying to, tie their hands and legs, something like that. And they used to get these kind of dreams, and then they think that, okay, it is happening with them itself when they're in ICU or when they're in ventilator, right? So their kids or the sons or daughters used to call us saying that a hospital is not taking care. Can you please help us out to get another hospital, something like that, right? So I don't want to, take a decision of, kind of help saying that, okay, hospital is not doing good, because I'm sure hospital would have done the best
Yes.
job,
Yes.
right? So if medical reasons behind it, because of the medicines that is being given during the COVID treatment, there are chances of hallucination that is happening in ICU and stuff like that.
See, is it during sleep?
Yes.
See,
During
these are all basically the dreams, okay? And whenever we are put to see, for example, in normal dreams also, if you analyze the content of the dream, most of the content would be related to our thoughts of the previous day or the previous week.
right.
The more whatever we think about it, we will get. I told you, I don't know whether you remember what I spoke about, that non-rapid eye movement stage and
Non-rapid,
rapid eye movement stage.
correct.
In sleep, that's what happens. In the rapid eye movement stage, our brain will be as active as when we are awake. So when we reach that cycle, these are all the thought processes which will go to store those messages in our brain. And this is one outcome, because that is what has been told by majority of the ICU admitted COVID patients with whom we had online sessions.
Okay.
They are more scared about that situation itself, not about COVID symptom.
Correct.
They are more scared about that next bed person dying, being taken away in front of their eyes. So obviously that will happen. So in this situation, what you can tell the family member is to explain this reason behind it, and then make them understand what is the role they can play. They just have to listen to these persons, in the sense whoever is admitted in ICU, whenever they talk about it, they need not deny, the person who's listening, the family member who's listening, they need not deny these facts. They just have to listen. just try to procrastinate things,
Mm,
so that definitely, if not this hospital, in the other hospital, ICU also will remain same. The
mm.
situation is not going to change.
Yeah,
Whereas the kind of support what we will give will bring down those reactions to some extent.
we had an extreme case where the patient said, we don't want in the hospital, and all this,
Yes,
happened.
yes, yes,
Then after
yes.
that, we decided, okay, let's help them with another hospital where,
Mm-hmm.
they can at least some mentally he is safe saying that, okay,
Yeah,
yes, I'm
yeah,
not in the
yeah,
same
yeah.
hospital. So that has helped to,
Okay.
save their lives. So.
Yes, yes. But at the same time, because there was a demand from only one person, you were able to do it.
Yeah.
What if there were so many, and if you don't have beds?
Correct.
So depending on the situation, also you may have to make the decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks a lot, doctor. Yeah, that's what I
Thank
wanted to
you.
confirm, because there are few cases of ICU patients like that used to come,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pattern remained the same.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
compounder
yeah,
was
yeah.
not giving the food properly, and then
Yes,
these
yes.
kind of stuff used to be here.
No, that's what actual support. If it is not properly given, then probably you can analyze the situation and then take decisions. But these kind of fears related things, which is quite psychological and emotional in nature, the emotional support will do more than shifting them from hospital to hospital.
Okay.
There you
And-
need to have these
And doctor,
criteria.
reason also could be because I heard in one of the apartment itself, this patient used to see either the dead or this one, right, within the ICU next to them.
Yes,
They lose
yes.
hope, and he was opening their oxygen mask, etc. many times. It seems that itself they are in ICU for a reason that their oxygen is getting depleted.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
this
yes.
helplessness and their own death fear, etc. They used to
Yes,
remove.
yes.
Then in those cases, I don't know, but is it right to tie their hands so that they don't remove it often, right?
See, this is medically they do it. For example, sometimes when there is a less amount of oxygen, people get disoriented. Like whenever you see, after surgery or something else, when people are disoriented, they tend to take off all those, medical apparatus. For that reason, they tie. And also when they tie it not with the rope or something, with the gauge, whatever they use for dressing up, they tie it with that, and that is not for long time as such, only when till the time they get the consciousness, and that would be better decided with the medical personnel who are there in that situation. They will be doing the right thing.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Anyone else has any queries?
Hi, Doctor.
Jambunathan, Doctor, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So it was an excellent presentation, Doctor. I congratulate you for that.
Thank you, sir.
The only thing I just wanted to know is there any off-the-counter medicine that could perhaps at least put the people at rest for some time? It's a safe medicine.
Okay, so see, we can't really just say that off the counter, because as I told you, the reasons for all these reactions and all those stuff, even the reactions itself, it is quite different for different people.
I agree.
Because generally people either go take the help of alcohol or the sleeping medicines, benzodiazepines. Both are not suggested like taking off the counter.
Okay, doctor.
Because that will have lot of other complications. So please, if at all, if with what I would like to suggest you is whatever these basic things what I spoke in terms of psychological support, most of the time it is taken care. And if you feel that that is not taken care, even after your interventions, it's always better to refer to this mental health professionals who, along with whatever support you are given, they also would try out other pharmacological intervention.
Yes, doctor.
Only 5 to 10% might require. Yes, sir. Yes.
I thought of this. Certain people are very satisfied if they consume something. And that placebo effect is there.
No, we are
that kind of
suffering because of that. We are suffering because of that. Even among some of our patients who are having some common mental health disorders,
Hmm.
somewhere over a period of time, they got used to some of the medicines. Now,
Hmm.
even if we wanted to stop it, they are not ready to stop it. They are
Exactly.
coming and giving terms to us. No, make this dosage, that dosage. You see, this is actually the dependence,
Yes,
which
doctor.
we don't want to create in this kind of situation.
Okay, fine, doctor. I understand your point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you, doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Any
Hi,
other
sir.
Yeah, please.
Hi, sir. Thank you for a very good session, sir. I really appreciate it. So I have
Thank
one
you.
cousin, sir, who is they are
Yeah.
living in another state. They used to
Mhm.
consult NIMHANS for their son. Actually, their son is around 17 years.
Okay.
So this COVID situation, I mean, because of that COVID situation on lockdown, they are unable to come and I mean, consult in. So and they are continue with the existing medicine, whatever it has been given earlier.
Okay.
Okay. Now recently, one incident was happened very badly. He has requested some amount. And, yeah.
Okay.
Because of his this one, father said that he will give some after some days. So he got frustrated and he got too much of angry, and he has done one bad thing. He has done one bad thing, which is he is suffering now. So based on the mood swing, he is doing like that. So they are
See, that's
also
what they can get back. They can get back to NIMHANS through this on a helpline. Okay. Can you see the number? Hello.
Yeah, number is not there. Yeah, number is there, sir. Yeah.
No. If you end of the session, you can also share this as a PDF.
Yeah.
If possible.
Yes.
That will be
I'll do
circulated
that.
to the
I'll do.
groups. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure,
so
sir.
that if you call this number, they will put them to the right consultant who are seeing the patient. Okay. Accordingly, help would be given.
Yeah. Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other further queries? We are already there at 11:20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, doctor.
Doctor, what are the normal post-COVID symptoms? I think which you may come across, and how long you may need to think it will be there actually.
See, when we are talking about mental health aspects, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Isn't it? So I would rather suggest you not even to talk about the post-COVID mental health complication. We will rather, as volunteers, we will rather promote what are the strategies to avoid these post-COVID complications. That is in terms of mental health thing. In the sense, as I told you, keeping ourselves physically active, having adequate sleep to 7 to 8 hours, as well as having food on time, trying to keep our routine. All these things will help us to be away from this post-COVID complications like feeling hopeless. Hopeless meaning to say when it will get over. This is for the people who are infected with COVID-19 in the past. What if I get it again? The more you are keeping yourselves idle, the more these post-COVID complications. So better because generally it is always better to say what has to be done in place of not thinking about COVID. So these are the strategies what I spoke about. So those strategies has to be promoted rather than only talking about these post-COVID complications of hopelessness, helplessness, always being worried. These are all generally this is there with everybody, not necessarily person who are affected with COVID. So anybody, if they're able to distract them by these activities, definitely their quality of life will be good.
Yeah, agree, doctor.
Yeah.
Thanks, doctor.
Any last 2 questions we'll take? Is there anything that people have? Please go ahead. Yeah. I think it's okay. Doctor, it was a very nice session. What we would request is, as a extension of this one, if you can plan some activity based this one, it could be less than an hour or whatever, anytime you're free. Yeah, it will really give us more insight into things. Yeah. And wonderful audience. Thank you for being there for 1 hour 20 minutes. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And looking forward for such sessions, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Lalita. Excellent session. Thank you very
all.
much.
Yeah.